You're listening to Ka-Pow, the pop culture podcast. Comics, television, movies, and more. If it impacts fan culture, we have something to say about it. And now, your hosts, Michael, Jordan, Cliff, and Seth.
Hello, all you lovely listeners. Welcome back. My name is Jordan. Hello.
Cliff Barnes.
Illustrious Michael K. Easton.
Seth. What are we doing?
We're zipping along. We're getting better at these introductions. We're figuring out Zoom, what all the buttons do on Zoom.
Yeah.
We are socially distanced coming at you.
Yeah.
Nice.
If you're a patron, you can watch the videos and count how many times Michael flips off Seth.
Yeah.
That you never hear, just the audio. You don't hear the finger.
Unsolicited.
Right. Unearned.
If you hear any point where that deserves to happen.
We need like a sound effect.
The millisecond.
We need like a whip crack or something for every time Michael flips off Seth, so the audio listeners can.
Yeah, if you're not a patron, guess who has a spinner rack of comics in their background. I wonder if they can guess.
Yeah, $1 a month gets you access to all that and more. So we love our patrons. We thank you, anyone who is a patron. And we'd love to have more. We'd love to have any feedback, even if you're not a patron. Email us, tweet us, tell us what you want to hear.
Yes.
Yeah.
We thrive on your opinions.
That's all we care about.
Like we threw out a recent one job, and one of our patrons said, I'd rather do another one job. So we are going to do that one job at some point. Not now, but
not today.
Right.
No time soon.
But someday.
Don't even. But when you forget about it, that's when we're going to do it. A week after that. But we are going to do a different segment that we haven't done in a while, a couple weeks anyway, where you learn about us. You down with KPP?
Yeah, you know me.
What the hell is wrong with you people?
You know me. What's wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
You know me.
I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
You know me. You don't know how it feels to be me. If you don't know me by now.
Why are you the way that you are?
So, what are we doing? What's the big question this week? Lay it on us.
This question actually came from Michael. Do you even remember submitting this question?
I don't know.
That's a no.
I don't know. We had a question from little Mikey in Williamstown, West Virginia. Mikey had to say, my favorite podcast.
Okay, let's reach into the mailbag and find out what Michael sent us this week. All right, in this question, it ties into pop culture really nicely, and I thought it was a very good question. Which TV character that arrived after the first season made the show they were on infinitely better? All right, we love TV. We watch a lot of TV. Not every show is cemented right from the beginning. Sometimes characters come in or leave. So who came in after that first season and made it a much better show?
Can I ask that instead of us just listing out a bunch of names, I know we have more than one each, could we each say our pick first and then discuss some other ones?
Sure.
I really want to know who people's final pick was. Before, I don't want them to be like, well, this, and this. No. Let's just hear what we'll hear after that. Who is your number one?
I'll just go first because I know, because mine's. And I didn't think too much about this, but most recently, I would say Patrick from Schitt's Creek.
Okay, yeah.
just finished watching. There's 6 seasons of it. I just finished it. Is there okay for spoilers, or I don't know? If you watched it, who's not?
Okay for Cliffy, seen it?
Yeah, we're cool.
Seth,
Unilateral
are
decision.
you down with it?
I've tried watching it twice.
He's not going to watch it.
So, well, anyway, the premises of the show is like a very ridiculous rich family loses all their money and they get put in a podunk town, and the hilarious that happens because of that.
I argue the last part, but go on.
Okay. Well, it does get better. Like, we tried to watch it once, and
now, did you watch it, Seth, till this character that Michael picked showed up?
No,
I don't know this
it's
person.
So,
towards
see,
like,
you have not given it a chance. Michael's going to explain to you why it's worth watching after this guy shows up.
This character, because the David character, which is the son,
Right.
he is gender fluid, and he's very open about that, and he's quite flamboyant about the way he acts and mannerism and stuff like that you see on TV representing of the gay community quite frequently, where Patrick is this new character introduced that becomes the love of his life, but he's a very straight-laced person. He dresses very differently, like very normal, and you see their relationship blossom from that of them just meeting and how he interacts and combats with David and how he is. And you see like it feels like a real relationship.
Right.
That in the real world.
They complement each other, even though they're very, very different.
I feel
characters.
like I've seen. I'm not trying to take.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean this in a trying to take away from that. I like the sound of this, but I feel like we have seen this in other things. There's often when the gay characters are depicted, there's a flamboyant one and a more straight-laced character that they pair together. Am I wrong?
Like Will and that flamboyant Grace.
Yes.
I guess like
no, but like Will and Jack, they always try to.
I think this is I think this is a little different though.
Yeah, I mean,
I believe you.
To a certain extent, but this seemed the most authentic version of this that I've ever seen, I guess.
I get you. I feel you. I'm not.
Yeah.
He is so trigger happy with the flipping me off. It's like I'm not even talking to him or throwing any shade at him. I'm talking about something. He's like, oh, they must be talking about me.
But just
I can buy that where like it's only been very recently there's been any representation on TV, and then it was just sort of the cliche character, and I can see it's taking this long to get to really nuanced, individualistic characters like that.
Yeah, and I think that's what it does. It takes away that that classic cliche aspect from this relationship, and it just shows you a relationship. And go ahead.
Just for it being a comedic show, like there was times where Chris and I'm watching this, like we were like tearing up in like some of the interactions between them, and just it's heartbreaking, heartwarming. I mean, you run the gamut of like, I guess like this showed the emotional side of the show being a comedy show, and it brought more of the reality drama type stuff into this comedy.
Yeah. No, I didn't think of that, but actually that's I really like that pick as something very recent, something in the pop culture world currently that, has a lot of momentum right now. But yeah, that was a very important storyline. That was really kind of the heart of the show for some seasons, was even if you didn't like some of the, we talk about that Christopher Guest comedy type of stuff, the relationship between those two kept you watching, I think, sometimes.
So how late is it in the run? Is it still fairly early, or is it toward the back end?
I think it's the last 2 seasons.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like...
That would be hard for a character that late, for a cast that's already established, to make a big difference.
And the show's good otherwise leading up to that, but that really solidified the show and made it more, I guess, heartwarming.
So yeah, usually by the end of the seasons, you're getting your cousin Olivers.
Right.
that you're not getting better characters, you're getting worse. So that's rare.
Yeah, and what it did was it really gave the story of the show kind of a meaning there, instead of just being sitcom-y, situational, here, let's take these oddballs and let's put them in an unfamiliar background of this town. That really kind of took over almost the show, because really in that show, what it comes down to, it's about the relationships.
I was just wondering what your day was looking like.
I'm not dropping the box.
Okay, I know, but it would just save me so much distress.
Oh, are you in distress?
Yes! The whole situation with Alexis and Ted right now is very awkward and cringy. Alexis told him she loved him.
Wow. Oh, good for her. It's not easy putting yourself out there like that.
Okay, sure. I just think it'll be less awkward for all of us, especially considering Ted now knows that I know that he knows, if you maybe took the box.
I'm not taking the box for you, David. I still have to unpack all of these products for Singles Week that you bought.
Okay, then I guess I'll just take the box and go then.
David?
Yeah?
Listen to me. What you're doing is very brave, very generous, okay? And I don't want to add more stress to your day, but I love you.
Okay, so you just said that to me for the first time, knowing that it would make my day more stressful.
That's correct.
Because you know that I've never said that to anyone else, aside from my parents twice and one time
At a Mariah Carey concert, I know. Yeah. And I don't expect you to say it back to me right now. You say it when you're ready. It just felt right to me in the moment. You're my Mariah Carey.
Okay. That compliment could bring me to tears, but I'm not gonna let it. So, I would like to thank you for all the wonderful things that you said.
Okay. You gonna get me a tea while you're out?
I will get you a tea. Would you mind just not looking at me while I take this box out of the room? Because I don't want you regretting any of the nice things that you just said to me. Hey, look away, please. Please.
That went well.
Who wants to go next?
Oh, I will. That's fine. I really want to say Jenny Piccolo, but we promised we wouldn't talk about Happy Days.
That
tonight.
is hilarious. I love. That's the stop right there. We win. Release a 10-minute episode.
No Happy Days tonight. We hashtag no Happy Day. Mine. I had 3 that came to mind fast, and I stopped thinking about them because I couldn't think of any 3 better. But my number 1 would have to be, I've talked about it before, so I won't drone on, but Buffy the Vampire Slayer, when Spike shows up in the 2nd season. He kind of turned the show into what it was. So the first season, there's some ups and downs, but it's very, the villain is the master, and there's this prophecy that is foretold, and the chosen one is anointed, and it's all this vampire lore. And it's fun, and it's fine, and it's zippy and fun. But then season 2, in walks the vampire Spike as the villain. He's like, we're not doing any of this. And he literally throws the anointed one out into the sun and kills him. He's like, we're going to have some fun now. And from that moment on, it became Buffy. So, to me, season 2, Spike the vampire, that's the biggest impact on a show that I love.
So, I mean, it's interesting to me to hear. I didn't watch Buffy. I mean, I saw random episodes here or there, but I missed the boat on it. And so both of those shows, I haven't seen that. And I always thought Spike just looked like that is the last character I would be interested in. Just one look at that guy with the bleached hair and stuff. I was like, I want nothing to do. It made me not want to watch that show, seeing that character.
I can see that, and there's a little bit of that, like, oh, look, it's the cool vampire. But he has so much personality, and he's on it till the end. He's on Angel, the spinoff, till the end.
Yeah.
And they go, like every character on that show, they go through a whole lot of changes. nobody ends the shows where they started. So yeah, Spike definitely has a journey to take, and he is more than just the cool Billy Idol looking vampire punk.
I'll go next. I don't know if I'm a step on Cliff or not, but this happened to cross my mind recently. Before the subject even came up, I was already like thinking, man, we need to do a TV character list, just because I think how much this character helped the show at the time. But I've been listening to the Office Ladies podcast. I still listen to it, and I'm a few episodes behind, but they're in the 3rd season. And when
that's the ticket.
And when they have the other offices where Jim went to work, and you get Andy Bernard joins the show, I just, that character, without that piece coming in season 3, I really don't feel like the show sustains. He's so good. One of the biggest improvisers on the show. To hear him interviewed now on these podcasts covering the show, just like what an amazing character when Andy Bernard comes to the show. He
was such an amazing character. Like you said, he wasn't supposed to stick around. He was going to be just in a few episodes, but he was so good. They kept him.
Right.
And he's good for a lot of reasons. You know, he becomes, at first, he's kind of when Jim's in
he's
Stanford,
supposed to be the Dwight.
He becomes the Dwight character. You know, somebody for Jim to mess with.
Yeah.
And then when they come back to Scranton, you know, he becomes the nemesis for Dwight. And they go back and forth for, you know, a lot of different episodes. But then, yeah, I mean, he serves a lot of purposes. It's interesting because that was my pick also.
You did it. You ruined it.
We did it.
I've been watching the infamous season 8 here lately. And which is not really, you know, that's always considered the worst season of The Office.
I've never even noticed that. People say those later seasons they don't like or whatever. I think it says I like the show is great from beginning to end.
Yeah, well, it's definitely not the strongest point. You can tell there's been
what's the 8th season? That's
when we get Robert California, and then Andy becomes the manager.
Yeah.
And then it's this real awkward thing with Aaron, and yeah. So as a whole, yeah, I that's definitely my pick, and and that was the reason why. Like he just brought so much.
Yeah. Really did to do. Like the whole thing, just that they talked about the whole Rock and Robin stuff, you know, this phone up at the ceiling, just him doing all the acapella and the banjo, just totally the unawareness of that character and the being a suck up and everything. Just
right.
He's amazing. He's got a new show that they're making, which I thought was an interesting take of a character. We'll talk about it another time. But anyway, I just think he's great.
Yeah.
Well, you crapped on Spike, so I'm gonna crap on Andy. I never really warmed to him. He is way down my list of favorite characters on that show.
Wow. See, I think that's what's interesting.
I think he's one of the best.
That's what's interesting, because he can go from being like, I'll go from this, I love him, to, oh my God, this is the most cringy guy. I can't believe, you know, like anybody would fall for his, you know, his personality mirroring and being such the suck up, and
without the charm of Steve Carell to pull it off, of doing something super cringy, but you still kind of like him.
Him playing off of Steve, where Steve is suddenly like, Steve has to change who his character is because this guy's there kissing his butt. Now he's like, I don't know if I want that anymore. You know, because I was trying to be cool boss, you know, like I'm everything, and now you're like way too much. And it, you know, I'm sorry that I offended you with my friendship.
Right. And they do such a it's the back and forth, you know, the complexity of it, because they do such a good job of going from that to then he's kind of this lovable guy and you love the singing and all that. Like, it's cute. But then they, you know, when Idris Elba comes in, and then he does the exact he's right back into it. He's this total suck up, cringy, you know, guy everybody would hate in the office character again, and you're like, oh, there he is. Yeah. So yeah,
I could see obviously him being not likable. Yeah, but
I haven't put a whole lot of thought into it, but just sitting here thinking, I think it is because I preferred kind of the mundane early seasons that were really grounded, and everything was. I still think the American version is better than the British, but it still had that feel a little bit. And then when Andy shows up, he's almost like a cartoon character. So for me, he didn't quite fit. And by the end, everybody's a cartoon character. Everything's really big and the plots are more wild. But I think maybe that he kind of upset the naturalistic feel that I liked in the early seasons. But I'm not saying I dislike the character. He's still hilarious, but it's just not, he didn't, I still kind of thought of him as like, oh, the new guy, you know, he was on the show for 7 seasons or whatever, but he still kind of felt like a later addition that never quite fit for me.
I think it's the, without a doubt, seasons 1 through 5 are the best television I've ever seen. Yeah. After that, it does go downhill. There's no doubt about that. And a lot of that is the writing, and like you said, the plots. They're out of the office. They're bringing in, you know, a lot more.
There's still so much in those later seasons. Not to just go off on the Office, but there's still so much greatness in those later seasons. That, I mean, the wedding and
Niagara
and just
episodes,
like so much in there that some of my favorite television I've ever seen. Yeah. So I refuse to discount the later seasons, but I still think that I don't think the show is what it is without that character. No. And I had a feeling that there was potential. He was your number one,
which is why you went there.
No, but actually, I was giving him a chance to go before me, but he never did. No, but I was stuck on that. A couple weeks ago, I thought before we even did this, I was like, I want to talk about characters just because of this guy. He was so good.
So
do you have a plan B?
Yeah,
Cliff? Do you have like Plop or somebody you want to throw out as like your second runner?
Clark. I'll just I'll throw out another name. I have several here, but Fraser Crane.
Yeah, Cheers.
Yeah. And really, I could almost say, you know, I could say Woody from Cheers. I could say Frasier from Cheers.
I don't want to say Kirstie Alley.
Yeah, no, I don't want to say. But Frasier being, you know, just this boyfriend character you weren't supposed to like, to be coming in and into such a timeless, one of the best cast on one of the best shows ever, for him to come in and make such a huge impact and become a staple and so likable that they give him his own show that goes on for years and years and years, and he sustains the character.
I take it you are a Frasier fan, like the show Frasier.
Yeah,
I think it's one of the best shows ever. I love Frasier the show.
Yeah,
I've watched it on a loop at lunch at work for 15 years.
Yeah. So I think that's another great pick. So, you know, real quickly, we talked a lot about Andy, but yeah, I mean, I think that's to take that character and get 2 hit shows out of it. I mean, even though Cheers, he wasn't the central character, but I mean, he was, you know, a main character. So
yeah, I would, the other ones that kind of stuck out to me, you know, just looking were, from my favorite show, you know, Saul Goodman and Mike Armentrout, you know, that show isn't what it is without both of them. It's amazing that they, well, I wonder if they, I'm sure Saul was in the second season. Mike probably came in the third. I'm not positive about that, but I know the first season was only like 6 or 7 episodes. So it's easy for them to have come.
That's another one I feel like Saul was probably just supposed to be in a couple episodes.
Yeah.
And he was so good and so central that they had to keep bringing him back.
Yeah. Well, I had a couple other third season entries. Newman from Seinfeld, Wayne Knight. And then also, we can't forget, come on guys, Dr. Curdle Jr.
I never even thought of Riverdale.
We could have done a whole breakdown of all the
first appearance, chapter 37, Fortune and Men's Eyes.
Oh my gosh.
When Dr. Curdle Sr.
I submit Lugnut.
I thought for sure somebody was going to bring up Baby Teeth.
Oh, yeah.
That show is too far out of our minds. It should never be this far from our thoughts.
That's true.
So yeah, Dr. Curdle Jr. takes over the role from Dr. Curdle Sr. after his character passes away. And who else is Betty and Jughead going to go to get
Did Dr. Curdle Jr. have to inter his own father?
That's a good question.
That would have been a good episode.
Riverdale only has one, so I'm sure he had to do
it. Do you guys have any honorable mentions?
Brienne of Tarth.
Michael, any other ones for you?
Jefferson from Married with Children.
Okay.
Oh,
Ted McGinley?
Yes. Yeah, also, you want to add him to your Jenny Piccolo list?
No, he did not help the show. Sorry.
No, that I like that though. Michael's thinking out of the box here. That was I loved Married with Children growing up. I never missed it, and yeah, that was.
While over at Seth's house, they were watching G-rated stuff. Over at my house was all Fox, Living Color, Married with Children.
All Fox all the time at my house.
I was gonna say how things have changed.
Yeah, flippity flop.
Back when Fox was a TV network only.
My other two, I had to go with Parks and Recreation when Ben Wyatt and Chris Traeger came in as the city managers.
People, we are here from the State Budget Office from Indianapolis. Ooh, what does that mean? Well, simply, we are here to tinker with your budget. Think of the government as a broken down carousel. We're going to slap on a new coat of paint. We are going to fix that broken speaker system, and we are going to get those happy kids back up on the horses where they belong. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah,
that's not bad. There it is. My partner Ben is going to stick around for a little bit, and I will see y'all later. Adios. Do you have a second?
I really like your shirt.
So I'd like to talk about where you think there's waste within your department.
Where do I start?
What exactly will you be cutting? And how much of it? And can I watch you do it while eating pork cracklings?
Okay, let's start with personnel. What can you tell me about Jerry Gergich?
Because that show, the first season did not quite know what it was. It was kind of trying to be The Office, and the tone wasn't quite there. So if I ever do catch a rerun and see Mark Brandanowitz, I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot that. Like, that show would not have become what it was with that guy on it. So he might be a wonderful person and a great actor, but his character was not
I don't know who that is.
In that first season, he was like the Jim who kind of rolled his eyes at everything. He was the everyman that all the craziness was going on, and like he had no personality whatsoever.
Right.
He did not fit. So when they brought in
Rob
Lowe, and
Adam Scott,
yeah, two comedic greats, and just really helped launch that show into high gear. And then my other one, I had to go with Frank Reynolds on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
I was wanting to bring that one up.
Another show, the first season didn't quite know what it was. It was these 4 horrible people in Philadelphia. And then it wasn't until the second season they bring in Danny DeVito, and they become the 5 worst people in Philadelphia. So it goes from them having it was a Seinfeldian sort of, oh, these people are just kind of rude and crude. And then the second season, his famous quote is, "I don't know how much time I got left, so I'm just going to get real weird with it." So again, season 2, just the depravity of Frank's character changes the whole show. And DeVito, talking about comedic geniuses, I love rewatching that. It's my favorite show to rewatch because you watch it once, you catch all the jokes, and it's funny. When you rewatch it and you know what's going on, you just always watch Danny DeVito. Whatever he's doing in the background, whatever faces he's making, he is always just like, he's always kind of lost and befuddled and doesn't quite know what's going on. And he has the funniest reactions to stuff. He's amazing in the role. And again, just kind of what that show became, I don't think it becomes that without him. Plus, he's the big name that got people to watch because they were 4 no names at the beginning. So DeVito was a star to help even get the thing renewed and keep it on the air as it has.
It's kind of I already feel like that shows so many episodes that I've totally missed the boat. And now you're telling me I have to watch it twice.
But it gets better twice. You'll love it. It's worth it.
Hey, we got to have something when The Office leaves Netflix here at the end of the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, that turned. I knew
we did
was,
it.
Yeah, I knew it was
one.
going to be some good stuff. So I'm glad we waited and put some thought into it.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about some shows.
I guess. Don't twist my arm if we have to talk about TV.
What in the good Lord is going on?
Nothing. Them just some fellas I play car pranks with.
The worst thing about prison was the Dementors.
Nobody exists on purpose. Nobody belongs anywhere. Everybody's gonna die.
There are no strings on me.
So if you want to make more money and
Keep the money that you make.
better call Saul.
He looks like a panda and a Disney princess had a baby.
Somebody royally forked up. Somebody forked up.
Randall! Okay, stay in your room.
First, I thought you and the others were gods. Then I realized you're just men. And I know men.
You guys, look at my dirty girl.
Roll on snare drum. Curtain. Good job.
Okay, now I want to do a segment here covering what I watched on Apple TV Plus the last couple weeks. So I'm just gonna.
Your free trial's over. Are you paying?
Yeah, I actually got a month because there's a show that isn't over that I want to finish. But I will just tell you the different shows that I watched on there. We did cover Ted Lasso a few weeks ago. I mentioned Ted Lasso and said it's great, and it definitely recommend that show as a feel good show. Excuse me, but there were several other things I watched on there. I watched The Morning Show.
We really liked that.
Yeah, I thought it got mixed reviews. It was it's
Steve very well acted.
Steve Carell, Jennifer Aniston, Reese Witherspoon, Mark Duplass. None of them are the ones that won an award. Who was the guy that won the award? He played Dr. Manhattan. Billy Crudup, yeah.
That was the whole reason why we got Apple TV in the first place, because Christy wanted to watch that show so bad.
I believe that.
That was the one they advertised when the streaming service was coming out.
Yeah, and I thought it was really good. I enjoyed the first season. It was they have the Today Show type thing, and there is a Matt Lauer type event. Basically there's a sexual problem with Steve Carell's character, and they deal with that throughout the show, and it's all about making this show and dealing with that and all that. And I thought it was really good. I can't wait for the second season.
Did he send an email? Did he send an email with a picture of Jan in it?
Yes, yeah. It looked really photoshopped, but it still got the job done. They passed it around the warehouse. It was a whole deal. Anyway, I thought that was good. I watched a show, a Charlie Day show that is on there. He's not in it, but he was the showrunner, I believe. Called Mythic Quest.
Oh, I heard about that one.
Yeah, it's they've had one season of that. What is I don't know the guy's name that's in Always Sunny. That's the guy that was buff and fat and buff and whatever.
Rob McElhaney.
Okay, he is it's about a video game company it's Mythic Quest. It's very like, just an online MMO where they're running this game. It's like the second season of the game or whatever. They've added things. Gosh, I don't know that one girl's name, but plays the character Poppy. I like her. All the characters are good. I don't know what to compare it to. I guess it has a little feel of Community. Danny Pudi is in it. It's good. It's got what's his name? Abraham. F. Murray Abraham. Is that his name? And I think that's his name. He like writes the cut scenes. It's just like the behind the scenes of a video game. And that main guy that you named is pretty funny, as he's very Always Sunny, just like oblivious and, always thinks everything he's doing is right. And he's just,
Poppy is Australian actress Charlotte McDowell.
Yes. I can't remember whether I saw her in anything before, but she's excellent in this. They all are really good. Ashley Birch plays a video game tester with this other girl. It's silly and a little over the top, but I really enjoyed it. As someone who plays video games, it's nice to see this made up world where they're making one and dropping expansions to the game that are silly and trying to corral Nazis into certain into their dome so they can fight each other. We'll call that.
The only clip or two I saw, I only thought of Silicon Valley maybe as sort of
it has that feel. It definitely has that feel. It's a very good comparison. Thank you. I knew I was thinking of something. I saw a couple movies on there that we watched. One was Greyhound, Tom Hanks movie released directly to Apple TV Plus, where he is a first-time captain leading a convoy of alloyed ships in World War II. Yes, that's Tom Hanks' thing, is World War II. And they're going up against a bunch of Nazi U-boats without any air support for like 5 days. And it is the daddiest of dad movies ever, as far as just, boom, right away, we're going to be praying and fighting some freaking Nazis. And it's totally fine. It's not very great. And I think it would have really, if they'd have released that in theaters, it would have been a big failure. I think it was not good enough for theaters. But I think once before I did the segment where I gave Nick's review, I'm going to give Nick's review of Greyhound. He wrote, would have been a lot cooler if at the end the ships turned out to be Transformers.
Hey, Greyhound would be a good name for a Transformer.
It really would. It really would.
Be a triple changer.
Yes. Okay. The other documentary I watched on Apple TV Plus, which I want to say how it works, by the way. You can get a free week signing up right now. There's only so many ways that there's only so many devices that have the app for Apple TV. A lot of time I think there used to be like a box that you bought, an Apple TV box, but now smart TVs sometimes have it.
Roku TV supports it. Google TV supports it.
Okay. PlayStation will be getting it starting when the PS5 comes out next month. But currently, you have to use a Roku or possibly an Xbox. I don't know if they have it or not, but I'm just using my computer and hooking it up with HDMI cable. I'm just saying, if you want to access it, it's possible. It's becoming more accessible. You can get a week for free and watch a lot of this stuff, or $5 a month is not bad.
They had a show on there that was by the creative team that does Bob's Burgers, which I love. But it's a musical. Like
I've scrolled by it. I haven't watched it, but I do know what you're talking
We
about.
just watched one episode and we couldn't get into it because they're just singing through the whole show. And
you have Apple TV?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You still have it. I mean,
Yeah,
I didn't know
I
whether
still
you're
have it.
subscribing to it or not.
Still with the original email.
Boys State documentary. With the original. Boys State documentary. I don't know if you guys ever heard of this. This is where it isn't always just boys, but it is in this documentary. Sometimes they're co-ed. But in Texas, they do a thing each year called Boys State where it's like a camp for a week, and they do like a mock election, a
I
mock
feel like
government.
Justin, my brother, participated in something like that.
That sounds very realistic to me.
I mean, he got to go to space camp, so I
If he went
think
to
he
space
also
camp,
did Boys
He
State.
sure as hell had to hold office. But
Older brothers get all the breaks.
Real birthdays and everything.
Yeah, multiple birthdays. Is it his second birthday yet? But what they do is they take all these, in this documentary anyway, they're in Texas. Okay, so first off, it's Texas. Have I made that clear? So, apply whatever you want to that. But you have a ton of masculinity all in one place, and they separate them randomly into two political parties that don't apply anything to this, but one is called the Federalists and one is the Nationalists. But they're just called that. There's no Republican or Democrat. They're split that way, and then they form their policies and how they will elect leaders. Some people run for governor, things like that. You have to get so many signatures to do that. You follow certain characters. Some of them are just like super bro-y. Some of them are very Ben Shapiro. Some of them are very just Democrats, very liberal, so, and on and on. So, I mean, it was so much better than I thought it was going to be. It started out, I was like becoming depressed rapidly. And as it proceeded, I got a little hope for the future. So if you have an opportunity to watch Boys State, that is highly recommended. The last thing I was going to say that I watched on there that I'm kept let it renew for, because I want to finish this series. There was a series in 2004 and then again in 2007 with Ewan McGregor and his best friend, where they rode motorcycles called Long Way Round. I think they rode through Europe, and then Long Way Down they rode in Africa. And now 13 years after that one, and many motorcycle crashes later, they've come back to do Long Way Up, where they travel from the tip of Argentina in South America up to Los Angeles. It's like a 15,000 mile trip, and they're doing it on electric bikes this time. Very prototype, early production bikes and trucks. It's kind of crazy through the worst conditions, and they're so likable. Ewan McGregor is just so likable. I just love it. I love watching the show. These guys traveling, riding these bikes. I would love to do like a cross country motorcycle trip. Got my motorcycle license years ago, but I just haven't ever had the opportunity to. do anything other than daydream about something like this. It would never be anything as extreme as what these guys are doing, but it's so much fun to watch them deal with the problems of this trip and enjoy it. So I love it.
Is that why you're trying to get fired?
Yes, so I can become a nomad. No more. I'm losing my country. It depends how the election goes. I'm going to become nomad and then the captain. It's a whole thing. I'm just going to get on my motorcycle, put my shield on my back.
Beard.
I got a guy at work trying to talk me into doing this. He's like, let's go. Anyway, that was Apple TV Plus. I found a lot of stuff. There's a ton more stuff on there. I know Kumail Nanjiani had a Little America that got some buzz at one point that I've seen advertised a lot about immigrants to our country and just looked at from different perspectives. But there's a ton of stuff on there to look at. For $5 a month, it's definitely worth checking out for a couple of months.
Yeah, it's rather cheap for a streaming service.
Yeah.
I think we're getting to the point where they have to be.
Yeah.
So, what have you been watching, Michael?
Well, we've been watching Schitt's Creek almost every day when I come home from work. That's pretty much what it's been the go-to show that we both can watch. I actually usually fall asleep to it, and the next morning she replays the episode. But that show, I will say, that is one of those shows that I've actually laughed out loud at. Like, I find extremely entertaining.
Yeah.
Which I'm completely surprised by it because, like I said, we first watched it like an episode or two and just were not into it at all. But, I mean, they did a good job developing it as it went on. And then there's something else I don't know, someone else speak.
Well, I'm going to make a recommendation. And I made it to you guys briefly. I doubt anybody actually watched it. But Netflix dropped The Cabin with Bert Kreischer.
I feel like Mary Tyler Moore. Is this a slimming angle for me? My buddies are coming up to hang out with me today. My name's Bert Kreischer. I'm a father, a husband, and a stand-up comedian, and I jam way too much into my days. My lifestyle is so chaotic.
What's up, Bert? You look like shit, man.
I'll take some time away, go to the wilderness.
It's a nice cabin you got.
Beautiful, isn't it?
A bunch of orgies probably happened here.
Dad, are you in rehab?
No, I'm not in rehab. Guys, thank you for coming up here. Out of all the activities we did today, what do you think's your favorite?
Yeah, I got a lot of impurities in me, and you gotta get them out.
How do you say bullseye in Espanol?
I personally, everything he comes out with on Netflix, I know it's a lot of the same stuff, and it all kind of has the same feel, but something about him, I think it's that giggling laugh he has just does it for me. Like
is this guy? He's the stand-up comedian.
Yeah, he's
the guy that takes his shirt off on stage. Is that?
Yeah, he's
okay,
the guy. That
I have not watched any of his stuff, so I'm in the dark.
Yeah, I don't know anything about him other than he takes his shirt.
He became famous-ish years ago when he was in college. He was in college for like 8 years at Florida State. And I think it was either Playboy or maybe it was Rolling Stone, did an article. They did a contest of like the biggest partiers in college in the country. And like he like won that. And he does outrageous things. Nothing is off limits typically with him. But he's a family guy too. He's married to just, a non-famous person. He has a couple kids. He talks about his daughters a lot in his stand-up act. I find the guy hilarious. His road to stardom was through, he has this story called The Machine about when he went to Russia. Michael's probably seen the clip of it.
Yeah, I have. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, when he was in college, he somehow ended up on a trip to Russia and befriended the Russian mob. it's a whole thing. It's one of the best comedy routines I've ever seen. He still does it because he has to be sick of it, but there's such demand. He's had some shows on the Travel Channel for a few times. He has a big podcast that he does now. He's really good friends with like Tom Segura, who also has a podcast called In Your Mom's House, and with his wife. And he's big in that circle of comics. But anyways, the premise of the show is he works so much, he travels so much, and he has this hard partying lifestyle that he tells his wife they're concerned about his health, so he tells her he's going to go into the woods, rent a cabin up above Malibu, and just chill out, and kind of detox and do some spa treatments and stuff. But he says, well, I can't be by myself, just because I'm OCD and neurotic and can't face, reality. So he invites a couple of his famous friends, more or less. And he doesn't really tell them what the show's about, other than it's in a cabin up in the woods. There's some therapy type issues going on. And then he just puts them in ridiculous situations. It's really odd pairings. The first episode is Tom Segura and Joey Diaz. It was really funny. Tom and Bert together are great. But then the second episode is Nikki Glaser, a comedian. If you watch Conan, she's been on Conan a lot. She has a podcast. And he pairs her up with Caitlyn Jenner. They've never met before, and he brings them up into the woods, and it's an amazing episode. They become quick friends and like exchange numbers, and Bert's kind of like left. He's kind of the side piece in the episode, but it's really interesting. He gets to talking about Caitlyn Jenner and the 76 Olympics and all that, and he's telling her his experience growing up. He wasn't old enough, but his dad ran track in college and was a huge fan of Bruce Jenner, and that was kind of his moment. So he does this, he FaceTimes his dad, and is just talking to him, doesn't tell him, and then it's like, hey dad, Caitlyn Jenner's right here, you want to if you want to talk to her. And, here's his senior citizen dad, and he's talking to Caitlyn Jenner and just expressing what a big fan he is and how important that was to him, and kind of asks like a track question in it. And then, that's it. And it was nice to meet you and all thanks. And then he hangs up, and Bert's just sitting there, and he immediately is emotional. He's like, I need a minute. That's the first time I've heard my dad talk to somebody about like that. And, how important that was, that he was able to introduce his dad to his hero. So it has little moments in that, in all the, the hijinks, the spa treatments that are always outrageous, coffee enemas and Russian spas, and it's crazy stuff. There's a lot of male nudity that you do not want to see. And then there's another episode. If you're gonna watch them, watch that one, and watch the one with Bobby Lee and Donnell.
How did they not name this "Comedians in Cabins Getting Coffee Out of It"?
Right, but the other great episode is with Bobby Lee that used to be on Mad TV. And Bobby Lee, of course, if you know him, he's outrageous too. So they get Bobby Lee and Bert together, along with Donnell Rawlings. And Donnell is he does not want to be there. He didn't know what he was getting into, and they're doing different spa treatments. But it gets really the heart of the show is talking about issues they have. They're making jokes and making comedy out of it, but there's some really good moments like that where they're talking about, Donnell's talking about his dad spent most of his life in prison when he was growing up, And, that's just the way it was. I don't, things he had going on there. And Bobby Lee he's talking about how his dad, beat the crap out of him. Anytime, and he would be punished for any disappointment he did. So there's some real serious stuff in there, but the comedy that is there is great. It's just everything Bert Kreischer does, I immediately watch on Netflix. He's got a couple different specials out there, so I'll recommend that to you guys. I'll recommend it to the listener. It might not be for everybody, but I think there's something there in season 1. It's only 5 episodes, season 1. Some of the other cast, he's got Joel McHale, Kaylee Kuko, or is it Kuko or Coco? Anyways, from The Big Bang Theory, she does an episode. The last episode has
Kuko's in Captain's Kidding.
The last episode has Anthony Anderson and Dion. I can't remember. He's on Blackish with him. But they do an episode, the last episode of the season, and it's some really good stuff. Talking about Anthony Anderson, I really like him, and he's talking about growing up in Compton, and they're out in the woods, and then he takes them. They're doing this beekeeping experience, and so there's a lot of humor there. I don't want to spoil too much about it, but yeah, it just, man. If you want something funny to watch, lighten up your day, you'll be like me, and you'll start with I'll give an episode a try, and then you'll sit there and binge all 5 episodes in one evening.
Okay, now that you've talked, I remember what I've been watching. I'll go this really quick. I've been watching Hollywood on Netflix.
I watched a couple episodes.
It's interesting. It seems to be based on the real events of early Hollywood. They throw some names around, and it's interesting of that old-timey Hollywood era, but pulling the rosy glasses off and seeing the dirty part of it, I guess. I'm not very far into it.
Yeah, I think that's the premise of it. Is it's it looks like it's supposed to be the Hollywood that existed in our minds.
Yeah, the golden age. I do like the opening credits. It shows all the actors like climbing the Hollywood sign, like trying to make it. And I think that's really cool. I guess I've been bouncing around because the other things I've been watching is mostly cartoons. Like I bought the first season of The Real Ghostbusters, and on Amazon, and it's actually, for as old as it is, it does have some small hidden gems that are actually pretty decent. Other times they recycle the plots a little too much, but and then for my birthday I bought myself the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles complete series. So I started going back, and like this is stuff like I put on the background like when I'm drawing and working on stuff. So I've been listening to that and some Thundercats. But on a slight diverted path, something that you brought up reminded me of a podcast. I know it's not TV, but I have to mention it because it's so good. It's called Son of a Hitman. It's on Spotify. It's a very limited like it's not very long. I think it's like 10 episodes. But it's all about Woody Harrelson's father that was been in prison for murder, and this guy trying to figure out the real story behind of what actually happened. And I mean, it goes down some very crazy paths, and it's very entertaining. Just like all this stuff supposedly happened and what he may or may not have been tied into. It was very interesting. And then the other one is, like I told Jordan about, there's a Ohio-based podcast called Cryptic that's about the cryptids in Ohio. And it's about this brother and sister team that go around investigating this. They were raised by their father he has passed away, and they're continuing the tradition. And
no, wait, these children were raised by their father?
Yeah, I know, right?
It's supernatural for Appalachia.
Well, I mean, like they were raised in this type of scene by their father in the cryptic scene, knowing all the stuff that people don't know about, and they're continually
Like what? Like what do we know about?
like the grass man, Sasquatch. There's something to do with melon heads. Like it's what I liked about it is it actually brought up things in Ohio, like the 5 bridges, Zanesville, Akron. It's referencing all these places. Like there's some way that you have to do this 5 bridge loop that takes you to this special place that where you meet they haven't told you exactly what they are yet, but as kids they did this and they called them the melon heads. I don't know what they are.
Do you guys know about the melon heads?
I'm listening.
I remember I looked this up.
You have to take a 5 bridge loop to meet the melon heads. Go on.
In a certain way.
In a certain way.
It's a crazy story. I remember I had to look it up one time.
But like they're visiting their crazy uncle in one of the episodes, and a whole family of Sasquatch come up and is communicating with him, and they're angry, and for some reason the brother can't remember the name of his wife, Erin, throughout the whole, like there's only one season of it right now. I think they're working on season 2, but like you don't know why he can't remember the name of his wife. Like every episode it's brought up, like your wife, and he's like, who? And she's like, Erin. And then there's something to do with the sister where she's like aged her. She doesn't like looking in the mirror. So there's all these little tidbits but it goes in and out of like them doing the show. Like they're doing the show, talking to listeners of what they've seen and gone investigating. And then it goes back to them actually going out and investigating these things back and forth.
If I ever listen to other podcasts, that sounds right up my alley.
Yeah.
You don't listen to other podcasts?
I don't listen to podcasts. Who would do that?
He only listens to ours because we make him write the show notes.
What's a melon head?
Yeah, what is a melon head? Please tell me the story.
I don't. It had something.
I'm gonna have to look this up now.
They were like kids that grew up
near 5 bridges.
No, I was thinking like in like the woods. It was a family of kids, and then they, all inbred, and it was a whole thing. I don't remember where I heard it from, but I remember
somewhere in there I heard about a family of Sasquatches. Them?
There's Grassman. Oh, they do not investigate the Mothman for some reason. I don't know. There's some bad blood there.
Got bad blood.
They don't cross. That's the one bridge they don't cross.
Here it is. Yes. Okay. The Melon Head stories of Ohio are primarily associated with the Cleveland suburb of Kirtland. According to local lore, the Melonheads were originally orphans under the watch of a mysterious figure known as Dr. Crow. Crow is said to have performed unusual experiments on the children who developed large, hairless heads and malformed bodies. Some accounts claim that the children were already suffering from
Yes, go ahead. Pronounce that word.
Hydrocephalus.
Hydrocephalus.
And the crow injected even more fluid into their brains. Eventually,
water on the brain.
Yeah. Eventually, the legend continues. The children killed Crow, burned the orphanage, and retreated into the surrounding forest and supposedly feed on babies.
Little babies!
Legend holds that the Melonheads may be sighted along Wisner Road in Kirtland and Chardon Township. The Melonhead legend has been popularized on the internet, particularly on websites Creepy Cleveland, Dead Ohio, where users offered their own versions of the story. So there was a movie called Legend of the Melonheads released in 2010 based on this story.
Well, now we need to stop and go listen to that other podcast because that sounds way more interesting than anything we've ever done.
Take your hat off, Michael.
I do not know how to segue out of that because Michael just swerved and went from cartoons to podcasts to dramas to comedies. I'll throw out some horror stuff since we're recording. It's right around Halloween time. I mentioned in the previous episode, AMC has Eli Roth's History of Horror back for season 2. So Eli Roth is a director with a lot of famous friends, so he gets a lot of people in to talk about horror movies. The first season was pretty good. This one, there's been a couple episodes out so far. The first episode was called Hell Houses. So it was about haunted house movies or like people moving to houses where bad stuff happens. The second episode was Monsters. So it was about King Kong and all the kaiju stories, and they did The Thing. And then the third episode is Body Horror. So it's sort of the creepy, Hellraiser and all the horrible things that happen in horror movies. But so this is AMC always has their Fear Fest every year where they play a bunch of horror movies and shows like this. But does anyone check out AMC Plus, the streaming service like everyone has? So just stick a plus on the end and it's now a streaming service. But
I have downloaded AMC app, but I didn't know it was Plus or whatever.
Yeah, they have all the AMC shows, the IFC shows, the Sundance Channel stuff, and they incorporated Shudder, which was its own like the horror app. So AMC Plus now has all the Shudder. I don't know if it's all of the stuff, but it has several of the Shudder things. So a Shudder show is called Cursed Films. So AMC has been showing that as well. I think it came out last year on the app, and now it's just AMC's playing it. And it's about famous movies that are said to be cursed. They've done 2 episodes so far. The first one was Poltergeist, the famous story about using actual human skeletons in the pool scene, and all the several deaths that happened after the series had people, they said that was cursed. And the second one was the Crow, and that was a really interesting episode. They had a Hollywood stuntman go through exactly what happened with the gun that killed Brandon Lee, and how one little missed detail and it was lethal, and it just bad news. But I didn't know anything about the Shudder AMC deal when I watched the Creep Show season 1. They aired all the episodes on AMC. They brought back the famous horror anthology series Creep Show, and they aired it over the summer. It was 6 episodes long, so each episode was 2 shorts, so there are 12 shorts in total in this first season. And every episode, it was framed like a comic book. You would see the cover of a comic, and then the famous Creep, the monster, would reach in with his hand and open it, and so each story was made to look like a comic book. But Greg Nicotero is the showrunner for that, who is the famous Hollywood makeup guy and Walking Dead director and producer on Walking Dead. And it just adapted a bunch of little short horror stories. There's some like a Stephen King book, a Joe Hill story, Joe R. Lansdale, and some original stuff. And they were each one, like, there was some good stuff and there was some really bad stuff. So it was kind of a mixed bag. But I enjoyed it more than I didn't. There were some that were just really generic and forgettable. Stars included Giancarlo Esposito, Adrienne Barbeau, Tobin Bell, DJ Qualls, David Arquette, Trisha Helfer, and Big Boy from Outkast, because I'm sure he saw Andre 3000 was acting in that other AMC show, and he probably got jealous. He's like, I got to be on TV too. So Big Boy was around. My favorite episode of
Frisch's Big Boy?
Big Boy, B-O-I. My favorite episode, it was called The House of the Head. Like the head of the house, it was the house of the head. And it starred Kaylee Fleming, who was the young girl. She plays Judith on The Walking Dead. And she was the young Rey on several of the Star Wars movies that flash back to her as a little kid. So she gets a dollhouse. And I've always wanted one of these dollhouses. And she sets her little family up inside it. And she comes in one day, and there's just this weird little monster in the dollhouse. Just a little doll of a monster. It's like, where did that come from? I didn't put that in there. And she goes and looks later, and like the family's all in another room, and she hadn't touched it, and like the dog's at the window barking. Or, it's just a doll. They don't move. Nothing happens. But like every time she goes back to the dollhouse, the figures have moved, and it had such a level of weird, creepy tension. And they would frame it. The camera would be either looking through the dollhouse at her face and her reaction, or it'd be like the point of view of her, and the camera would scan, like looking for what's wrong, what's changed, and it was so creepy and like such dread to it of like, where's the little doll at now? And then like one of the dolls in with its head missing in the next room, and then a police doll shows up at one point, and it's like they call the police, and then like they find the bodies of the policemen. So like things just keep escalating with these dolls, but there's literally no movement. There's no sound effects. It's just static images of these dolls. Every time she looks away, something else happens, and it was
Doctor
terrifying. Like the
Blink.
angels,
Blink.
Yeah.
Angels, yeah. So that if you see that one, that's the high point of the whole series for me so far. But just I watched that a while ago, but I wanted to remember that here on the Halloween season.
Well, one of the most fun things I've watched in a while. Carly, my daughter, loves Supermarket Sweep.
I have a whole section of game shows here of how many game shows are on the air right now.
Like the old show on Netflix right now, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, last week as we record, we got the first episode of the new Supermarket Sweep, hosted by Leslie Jones. And it was some of the most fun television we have experienced here lately. Carly absolutely loved it. It was the same old game show, but adding Leslie Jones into it and just being herself and just, screaming and yelling and being excited and off the cuff made it so much better than the old show. They've added a couple little wrinkles, some new additions when they do like the big sweep at the end. Now there's like a florist section. They have like characters planted in the store. So, you get like $100 if you get the roses. Well, it's going to take that guy forever to like bumble around and before he gets the roses to you. So it eats up the clock. Or there's like a barista and you have to, you need to put your order in, and she's spilling coffee and throwing the cups around, eating time off the clock. So that was a lot of fun for us.
How much does intact Gatorade get you?
Right. Well, they did something very smart, and they have Leslie Jones during the big, the racing sweep. They put her on like a microphone, and she's like live commentary as they're running through the grocery store. So she's yelling at the players as they're doing it, and they can hear her over the thing, and she's announcing like specials and sales and stuff as they're, to make it more urgent. So it was just a lot of fun. I normally don't like the rebooted, nighttime game shows, but man, this thing could have some legs on it. I could see it being very popular at first, and then maybe taking it and moving it to daytime television, as long as they keep her with it. So,
yeah, I happened to notice that this week flipping around channels. Supermarket Sweep debuted. Card Sharks, I think, was on right after with Joel McHale.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet.
No innovation since the 70s. Like it's giant playing cards, same rules, same everything.
That's what basically. I want, though. I want to watch those game shows I watched as a kid.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is back for season 2 with Jimmy Kimmel as the host. They're doing it with an empty crowd, and they're doing celebrities playing for charity, or they're having different first responders as contestants. So doctors and nurses and people who are out there during the pandemic are able to win. NBC had The Weakest Link come back with Jane Lynch. which it's again very similar play, but it didn't quite grab me the way the original did. Of like, because Jane Lynch is a comedian, so you know she's joking. Like the original was just a stern, mean English lady, and
that was
like
the biggest thing at that moment in time.
Yeah.
There was nothing bigger than "You are the weakest link,"
and it uses all those same, this much money will be moving on to the next round, but one of you will not. Who is the weakest link? All the exact same script and everything. And then there's one we talked about trivia that we do. El Rey Network, the Robert Rodriguez channel, has a show called Correctamundo, and we're not talking Happy Days. It is literally Zoom trivia. It's the host is Hector Navarro. They do El Rey Nation has basically like a daily talk show where they talk nerd stuff and movies and comics and all kinds of stuff. They're kind of stealing our thunder here a little bit.
Yeah. How do we get on this show?
Yeah, so it's just him and 3 of his friends from this rotating group of people, and they do movie trivia, and each one is like one episode was about sci-fi movies, one was about fantasy movies, one was about comedies. So it's just an hour-long Zoom movie trivia game that people are putting on television. And I did get news today. Miracle Workers is coming back for a 3rd season on TBS.
Cool.
This was the Simon Rich anthology series. So each season is different. The 3rd season will be set in the Old West.
Nice.
All right, so this season is 1844. A small-town preacher, played by Daniel Radcliffe, is teaming up with a wanted outlaw, Steve Buscemi, and a quote-unquote liberated prairie wife, played by Geraldine Viswanathan, who was the
girl,
the breakout star from that show.
Yeah.
To lead a wagon train of settlers along the Oregon Trail. So I'm sure it'll be the same sort of what do you call that? Anachronisms and like a lot of very modern references, but set in the Old West and all that stuff. So I'm happy about that.
I'm excited.
And we're probably running very late, but speaking of Westerns, I had to recommend. We haven't talked about Ethan Hawke yet this episode, and I feel like we're going to need to do that more often. But I have to recommend The Good Lord Bird on Showtime. I don't know if anyone has access to Showtime or whatever.
You're our Showtime guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Cliff, I think you would really like this as a historical drama. That seems to be up your cup of tea.
Yeah.
So it's a Western. It's a limited series. It's not an ongoing, so it's just going to be a short series based on the novel by James McBride. So each episode starts and it says like, the following is a true story. Most of it happened, or something along those lines of like, it's history and it really happened, but they take some liberties and there's some kind of absurd moments and they stretch things a little bit. So this is Ethan Hawke as John Brown, the famous abolitionist. And it also has young actor Joshua Caleb Johnson. It's his first role. And he is an escaped slave named Henry. And when they first meet, Ethan Hawke thinks he said Henrietta, so he thinks he's a girl. It's like, young lady, we're going to get you the finest dresses and we're going to take care of you. So the kids, he doesn't, being a slave back then, you couldn't correct a white man. So he wears a dress through the whole series and poses as young Henrietta. It has Daveed Diggs as Frederick Douglass, Wyatt Russell as Jeb Stuart.
I did see something about this because I saw Daveed Diggs dressed up as Frederick Douglass, and I was like, oh, that's kind of neat.
Yeah, his episode was just the last one I saw that introduced him, and he was really good in it. So, it's described equal parts absurd and tragic. The series is told from the point of view of a newly freed teen who becomes part of John Brown's motley crew of militant abolitionists. So it starts in Kansas. It was referred to as Bleeding Kansas. So this was when the territory was going to be a state, and there was friction if it was going to be a free state or a slave state.
Yeah.
So that's where it all kind of kicks off, and John Brown goes there to make sure it does not become a slave state. And then it's eventually leading to the famous raid in Harper's Ferry, West Virginia, that he wants to raid the Army depot and the arsenal there to launch a slave revolt and end the horrible, the horrible practice of slavery. And we haven't got there yet, but we all know that doesn't work, but it does end up leading to the Civil War. So it's it's grounded in history, but there's a real swagger to it. And Ethan Hawke plays it as like, he's like half crazy, and he's super religious and so against slavery. So there's gunfights and explosions going on, and he's shouting at the top of his lungs of, like, and wickedness in their hearts shall be perished. He's quoting Bible verses, and like he's asking his kids, like, Ecclesiastes 12, John Jr. He's wanting them to quote Bible verses as bullets are ricocheting everywhere. So it's a wonderful performance from Ethan Hawke. And the first episode, it took me a minute to kind of get the vibe of it, but I'm really gelling with it now. So very highly recommended. The Good Lord Bird.
Sounds good. I would just mention the last thing I have to mention just timely here with the election is, if anyone was likes Aaron Sorkin and ever watched The West Wing, there's a When We Vote special on HBO where they did a redo of a famous episode of The West Wing on a stage in an empty theater. And when they played the theme song with acoustic guitar to an empty theater, it like choked me up a little bit. It was excellent. Definitely.
Yeah, I didn't realize it. I didn't know if it was new material or if it was a remake.
That's I've seen that episode multiple times, and I have only seen the series once, but I feel like that was a famous episode. Hartford Ferry. It was all about the town that voted. It was like, whether it was like primaries or I don't know what it was, but they're famous for having always predicted who won the election with who these 60-some people voted for. And so it kind of revolves around that. Meanwhile, the president had just gotten back Martin Sheen, and he has all these chess sets. So he's like playing chess with multiple different people in his cabinet, throughout the episode. And he's like a freaking genius. That president is supposed to be really smart. And it's just a really good episode, and fits right in this moment in time. Highly recommend. It's on HBO.
We hope you got out and voted. As we record, we're about 10 days shy of the election, I think. So
Yep.
You of the future know more than we do.
Be on the other side.
When next we talk, things will probably be different.
Oh my gosh, Carly and I watched Hamilton the other night again, and it was, well, I started it because we were just all talking. I just wanted background noise, and it's musical. It's just, and here comes Carly. She's like, "Are you watching Hamilton?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Without me?
Yeah, without me. And so I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Okay." So she comes out and sits for a while. And then, Cooper made the statement about, like, he's like, you realize it's like, I started at like 9:30. He's like, this is 2.5 hours long. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to watch the whole thing. And eventually, one by one, they all went to their rooms and went to bed. And I'm still sitting there at almost midnight watching the entire thing. But when you said that line, it just reminded me, oh, Hamilton. So, sorry.
All right,
sounds good. Thanks for tuning in with us and talking some TV. Nothing slowing down on our end. We got plenty more to talk about, and we will be back shortly with even more. Until then, my name is Jordan Lowe.
As always, I'm Cliff Barnes.
I'm the illustrious Melon Head.
Wow. Now
if Seth called you that, you would be mad, and you would have flipped
me off.
Be making fun of me. I make fun of me. You can't make fun of me.
We all make fun of you. For $1 a month, you can make fun of Michael on our private Facebook page. I'm the new streaming service, Seth Plus. Bye forever.
Ka-Pow, the pop cultured podcast, is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Sounds, music, and clips played during the podcast are property of copyright holders. All original content is property of www.udownwithkpp.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a comment. Ka-Pow, the Pop Cultured Podcast, is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found. You can connect with us through social media on Facebook, YouTube, at the Ka-Pow Podcast on Twitter, or email the show, Ka-Pow, the Pop Cultured Podcast, at gmail.com. If you really want to go the extra mile, please sign up to be a patron through the Podbean app or our website, www.udownwithkpp.com, to receive special content and early access to some episodes. We are grateful to anyone that chooses to contribute, but please know that most of our content will always remain free, so please continue to like, comment, and share.